You're charging me rent for this dump? Mom's voice echoed through the gallery like a bad note on a violin. I looked up from behind the reception desk, where sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting warm golden hues across the freshly polished floor. My latest exhibit stood quietly behind her, bold, surreal paintings that had taken me years to perfect, and she was calling it a dump. It wasn't the words that stunned me. It was the irony. She was standing inside my gallery, the same dream she once crushed with a single sentence. Your art is cute, honey, but it won't ever pay the bills. Now here she was, stunned, angry, and humiliated because she didn't realize until today I owned the building. I leaned forward, calm and steady. Rent's due on the 1st, Mom, just like everyone else. My name is Emily Carter, and I was born in Asheville, North Carolina, a quiet little town nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains, picturesque, poetic, and filled with the kind of people who think dreams are only real if they come with a paycheck and a pension. My mother, Linda Carter, was one of those people. She believed in hard work, discipline, and practical careers. She was a nurse for 30 years, respected, tough, and always in control. There was no room in her world for softness, for whimsy, for art. Especially not in her only daughter. I think she started resenting my sketches as early as 3rd grade, when I drew a picture of a tree that won the school art contest. I remember the principal handing me a tiny blue ribbon and Mom standing stiffly in the corner, arms crossed, not clapping. That night, she said, "I'm happy for you, but maybe don't get too distracted. Art doesn't exactly pay for groceries." That was her way, praise wrapped in caution, and caution wrapped in criticism. I always loved to draw. The scent of crayons, the feel of charcoal on my fingertips, the way I could disappear into a canvas and forget the world outside. It was the only place I felt safe. My father had passed away when I was 9, and Mom never really recovered. She didn't cry, not once. She just worked more hours. I remember thinking she was made of concrete, cold, gray, and unbreakable. I grew up quietly, an only child, mostly alone. My bedroom was a sanctuary, with sketchbooks hidden under the bed and paint-stained clothes folded carefully to avoid comments. I used to draw late into the night with a flashlight under the covers like some kids read comics. I knew early on I wanted to be an artist. So I enrolled in the art program at a local college against Mom's wishes. "You're throwing your life away," she snapped the day I mailed my acceptance letter. She wanted me to be a nurse like her. Something solid, respectable. But every fiber of my being screamed no. I wanted colors, not corridors. I wanted to feel, not fix. We fought that day, the worst argument we'd ever had. I moved out 2 weeks later, with a half scholarship, 3 part-time jobs, and $74 in my bank account. College was brutal. Not because of the work, I loved the work, but because I had to survive on so little. I juggled classes with night shifts at a diner, weekend gigs at a craft market, and commission work that barely covered paint supplies. I lived in a shared studio apartment with peeling walls and a bathroom door that never quite closed. But I was happy. Every morning, I woke up to the scent of oil, paints, and hope. I had no support from home. Mom didn't call, didn't visit, didn't ask how I was doing. I sent her one of my paintings once, a portrait of my father, full of love and grief. She never responded. But the most painful part? She told my Aunt Caroline. "She's wasting her time. No one's gonna buy a painting from a Carter girl." There were moments I almost gave up. Like the time my landlord threatened eviction because I'd spent grocery money on canvases. Or the time my professor told me I was too safe with my work. But I met someone then who changed my life, Mrs. Evelyn Reyes, my figure drawing professor. She was tough but brilliant, with silver curls and sharp eyes. One day after class, she stopped me as I was leaving. "Emily," she said, holding up one of my sketches, "you're scared. Stop painting what you think they want to see. Paint what's in your chest. The messy, broken, beautiful stuff. That's where the magic is." It stuck with me. That night, I painted for 8 hours straight. I cried halfway through. It was the first time I painted not for a grade, not for a customer, but for myself. I called the piece Unheard. A faceless girl in a room full of people. It was raw, ugly, powerful. That painting won a regional award. My first. After graduation, things didn't get easier. I moved to Charlotte and tried everything: street fairs, online stores, social media, networking events. Some people liked my work, most didn't buy it. But I kept going. I started offering custom pieces for small businesses, murals, logos, cafe art. Slowly, steadily, money started trickling in. Then one day, I got a message on Instagram from Kendra Miles, the owner of a boutique gallery space. She wanted to feature my work in a spring showcase. I thought it was a prank at first, but it was real. She'd seen my art at a downtown cafe and looked me up. I cried in the bathroom after reading her message. The showcase was small, 10 pieces, 3 weeks. I sold 7 of them. That night, I made enough money to cover 2 months' rent. For the first time in my life, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't crazy for believing in myself. That same week, I got a call from my mother. "Heard from Caroline you're doing some kind of art show thing," she said, like the words themselves were foreign. "I don't understand what you're doing, but good luck, I guess." She didn't come to the gallery. Didn't ask what I'd painted. But for once, she didn't insult it. That was her version of a compliment. Still, it stung. The turning point came 2 years later. By then, I'd saved enough to lease a dusty old storefront in downtown Charlotte. It was broken and forgotten, a once-loved bakery with water damage and rats. But I saw potential. I poured everything I had into that space. Scrubbed floors, painted walls, built shelves, hosted free events to bring people in, called in favors. And when I couldn't afford help, I did it myself. I lived in the back for a year, eating ramen and sleeping on an air mattress. But slowly, it bloomed. The gallery became a space for local artists, for voices like mine that had been silenced, dismissed, or laughed at. We held monthly exhibits, poetry nights, therapy through art workshops. We called it Unheard Studios. It became more than a business. It was a movement. And that's when my mother came back into my life. She retired from nursing and needed a place to teach part-time knitting classes. My gallery had space for workshops, and she applied like any other stranger. She didn't even realize the place was mine. Until the day I called her into the office and handed her the lease. Mom sat across from me, her jaw set in that familiar clench she used when she was trying not to scowl. She still hadn't quite processed that she was sitting inside my office, in my gallery, applying to use my space for her little knitting club. The irony was so thick you could paint it. "This Emily Carter?" she asked, glancing at the name on the office door, then looking back at me with narrowed eyes. I nodded. She blinked, then laughed, but it was short, awkward. More of a release valve than a real laugh. "Well, isn't that something?" she muttered, trying to sound impressed but clearly uncomfortable. I didn't say anything. I just pushed the lease agreement toward her. She stared at the paper, then looked up. "What is this?" "It's the standard agreement. $1,300 monthly for the front room on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Includes heating, lighting, promotion in our community calendar, and access to the kitchen for refreshments." Her eyebrows arched high. "You're charging me?" I tilted my head, calm, measured. "Everyone pays, Mom. Even the Carter girls." She stared at me like I'd just slapped her. For a second, I saw the fury rise in her, that old, familiar, ice-blooded authority she used to carry like armor. She straightened in her seat, trying to reassert control. "I'm your mother, Emily. You really think it's appropriate to make me pay to use your little art clubhouse?" There it was, the condescension. Even after all this time. I didn't flinch. "It's not a clubhouse," I said gently. "It's a registered business. A gallery and workshop collective. And that room is in high demand. I already have 2 other people interested in the same time slot." She leaned back, lips pursed. "You think you're better than me now?" I let that sink into the silence. The question wasn't a question. It was a challenge. The old dynamic trying to breathe again. I reached slowly into the drawer and pulled out a red folder. Actually, I said, placing it on the desk between us, I think you should take a look at this before we continue. She had the folder like it might bite her. Inside was the deed, notarized, legal, and binding. The entire building, from the foundation to the rooftop signage, belonged to me. I had bought it 3 months ago. After years of scraping, saving, and selling everything I could paint, I'd landed a city arts grant that matched my earnings and allowed me to purchase the entire property. I hadn't told anyone, not even Kendra. I wanted it to be quiet, dignified. I wanted the gallery to stand on its own name, not mine. Mom opened the folder, skimmed the paper, and froze. Her eyes flickered over the lines like she couldn't believe what she was reading. You bought the building? Yes. You own this building? I do. She looked around, at the freshly painted walls, the original brickwork I had preserved, the lighting I'd installed, the artwork that filled every corner. You could practically hear her rewriting her memories in real time. I leaned forward, my voice soft but firm. This isn't just a gallery, Mom. It's my life's work. Everything you ever told me I couldn't do, I did. And now, you're sitting in it. She didn't speak. Not right away. Her fingers trembled slightly as she closed the folder and slid it back toward me. For the first time in years, I saw her without armor. Not angry. Not dismissive. Just stunned. I stood up and walked over to the window. Outside, kids were laughing in the park across the street, and sunlight danced on the sidewalk like tiny flames. I took a deep breath. You always said my art wouldn't pay the bills, I said, not accusing, just stating. But now it pays mine. And apparently yours too. Silence. Then, in a whisper so soft I almost missed it, she said, I didn't know. I turned back to her. You never asked. She didn't cry. Linda Carter never cried. But something shifted in her face. A crack. A flicker of regret. I was just trying to protect you, she said finally. I didn't want you to end up struggling. I thought art was a dead end. I nodded. And I get that. I really do. But you never believed I could make it work. Not even when I begged you to try. I walked back to the desk and tapped the lease. So now, I need you to respect it. Respect me. Just like you would if this space belonged to anyone else. She stared at the lease. Then slowly, she picked up the pen and signed. The next few weeks were tense. Mom started her knitting classes every Wednesday and Saturday just like we agreed, but nothing felt normal. Every time she stepped into the gallery, it was like the walls shrank. The air got tighter. My staff noticed too, a shift in energy when she was around. She'd breeze in, stiff and polite, as if she were doing me a favor by using the space she was paying for. She'd say things like, "Oh, I guess this is nice." Or, "You've done well for what it is." Backhanded compliments. Polite stabs. Constant reminders that in her mind, I was still that little girl wasting time with crayons while the world burned around her. Then came the day she brought company. I was finishing up a meeting with a local school looking to partner on a youth art program when I saw her standing in the front gallery with a group of women. 3 of them. Same age bracket as her. Conservative clothes. Tight smiles. Church friends, probably. They were standing directly in front of one of my newest installations, a raw piece about generational trauma and the pressure of perfection in mother-daughter relationships. One of my proudest works. And then I heard her say, "Of course, I don't agree with this one. It's a little aggressive, don't you think?" Her friends nodded. One even laughed. Something inside me cracked. I walked straight over, keeping my posture calm. "Hi, Mom," I said. "Glad to see you showing people around." She smiled tightly. "Oh, just giving the ladies a peek. Some of it's lovely. A bit dark, though." I held her gaze. "That piece isn't dark. It's honest." Her smile faltered. She turned back to her friends. "Well, not everyone sees it that way. Art's subjective, right?" I nodded slowly, then faced the women. "Just so you know, this piece was inspired by the emotional silencing that happens when a parent constantly invalidates their child's dreams." "So? I guess it is personal." They froze. Awkward silence. Mom's face flushed. Emily, can we talk in private? We stepped into my office, and the door closed hard behind us. What are you doing? She hissed. Embarrassing me like that? I crossed my arms, calm but unwavering. You embarrassed me, Mom. You brought people into my gallery and mocked my work. That's not okay.
She scoffed.
You're being dramatic. I didn't mock it. Calling it aggressive in front of strangers is disrespectful. Would you have said that to a doctor about their diagnosis? To a chef about their food? It's not the same. It is the same, I shot back. This is my work, my life, my truth. And you don't get to rent space here and then tear it down in front of your friends. She sat down, arms folded. You've changed, she muttered. You used to be soft. I raised an eyebrow.
No, Mom.
I used to be silent. There it was, the truth neither of us had said out loud before. She sighed, long and heavy. You always took things too personally. That's what people say when they don't want to take responsibility for how much they hurt you. We sat in silence for a moment. She stared at the floor. I stared at her. Then she said it, the thing I'd always feared hearing but somehow needed to. I didn't think you'd make it. I thought you'd fail and I didn't want to watch it happen. It hit harder than I expected, even though I already knew. I sat down across from her, more tired than angry. I know.
You didn't believe in me.
But that doesn't give you the right to diminish what I've built. You can be here. You can teach. But if you ever mock my work again, I'll terminate your lease. No hard feelings, just business. She looked up, stunned. You'd kick me out?
Yes.
If anyone else did what you did today, they'd be out already. I've been enough for you. Later that day, my assistant Jillian pulled me aside. She'd overheard parts of the argument, and she looked conflicted. Can I say something? She asked. I nodded. Your mom, she's out of line. I mean, I've been working with you for 2 years now, and you've never disrespected anyone's vision. You've mentored people, donated supplies, covered rent for struggling artists. She doesn't see it, but we all do. You're the reason this place exists. Her words hit me right where I needed them to. She hesitated, then added. But I think she's jealous. Not of the gallery. Of your courage. Of how you broke the pattern. And she wasn't wrong. In the days that followed, Mom kept her distance. But then something unexpected happened. My cousin Mallory, the daughter of Mom's sister, who'd always sided with her, called me. She'd been watching everything from afar, quietly. I saw your gallery online, she said. It's incredible. And I think I want to talk to someone about joining your women's art circle. I blinked. You? I thought you studied accounting. She laughed. I did. But I've been painting for years. Just never had the guts to show anyone. Until now. That conversation lit a match. One by one, other women in our family, cousins, nieces, even a few older neighbors started attending workshops showcasing small works or asking about volunteering. And every time Mom walked into the space now, she saw it, saw them, saw that the things she once thought of as useless and fragile had become a refuge for others. A fire that wouldn't burn out. One Saturday, she stayed behind after her class. She walked into the main gallery while I was cleaning brushes. You know, she said, almost nervously, Mallory told me you helped her feel like she wasn't invisible. I smiled. She helped herself. I just gave her a wall to hang it on. She paused. Then, in a rare moment of humility, added, maybe I was wrong.
Maybe.
I didn't know how strong art could be. I didn't say anything, just handed her a cup of tea and nodded toward the bench in the back, where sunlight hit the floor like gold. We sat quietly. 2 women, both scarred, both stubborn, both finally seeing each other. A few days after that quiet afternoon, I received an email. Subject, Gallery Feedback, Carter Textiles Group. I opened it, expecting some complaint or snide suggestion, but it was from Mrs. Betty Langston, one of Mom's knitting club members. Dear Emily, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your space with us. I've never felt so inspired in a place that was supposed to be young people's territory. Your gallery has warmth, and it's not just the lighting.
It's you.
I don't know if your mother has told you, but we admire what you've built. P.S. The piece near the window, the one with a child hiding behind a curtain, moved me to tears. My daughter paints too. I hope one day she feels this brave. That message cracked something open in me. I began noticing things I'd missed before. The women who came for the knitting circle started staying longer. Sometimes they'd browse the art. Sometimes they'd ask questions. A few even sat in on weekend workshops. One day, I overheard two of them giggling about taking a pottery class in the fall. They were becoming part of the space in a way I hadn't expected, not just guests, but contributors. I started to understand something. This place was never just mine. It was always meant to be ours. And the revenge I thought I needed, the satisfaction of proving my mother wrong, was fading. Because something far greater was happening. I was proving myself right. A week later, Mom arrived early for her Saturday session. She didn't come in wearing her usual guarded face. She looked softer, like a layer had peeled off. "Emily," she said, "can we talk for a second before the others arrive?" I nodded. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her bag. "I've been working on this letter. I'm not great with words, so I thought it might be easier to write it down." She placed it on the counter and stepped back. I picked it up, hesitating. She gave me a weak smile. "You can read it later." That evening, after everyone had gone, I sat on the gallery bench and unfolded the letter. "Dear Emily, you have every right to be angry with me. I see it now. The way I dismissed your art, the way I pushed you to fit into a world that made more sense to me than it ever did to you, it was never about you failing. It was about my fear. I was scared that the world would chew you up and leave you broken. But in trying to protect you from pain, I became the one who caused it. I've watched you turn blank walls into stories and empty rooms into sanctuaries. I see how people look at you now, with respect, admiration, trust. I don't know how to undo the past. But I'm here. I'm trying. And I hope one day you'll believe that I'm proud of you. Not because you proved me wrong, but because you became more than I ever knew how to dream for you. Love."
Mom.
I cried. Not out of pain, but release. Because it wasn't just an apology. It was a moment of recognition. A bridge. A mother finally seeing her daughter not as a fragile extension of herself, but as a full and powerful woman. The next day, I made a decision. I invited Mom to co-host a fall event at the gallery, a community open house called Hands That Make. It would showcase both traditional and modern crafts, embroidery, painting, sculpture, weaving, digital installations, even quilting. At first, she blinked like she didn't understand. "You want me to co-host?" I nodded. "I want everyone to see how creativity passes through generations. In different forms, from thread to brush." Planning the event was strange at first, two very different people trying to merge visions, but something beautiful happened in the process. We found common ground. She taught me about old dyeing techniques that I'd never heard of. I introduced her to a 17-year-old mixed media artist who used recycled thread from thrift stores. We didn't always agree, but we laughed more. Listened more. At one point, she said, "You've made something real here. Bigger than any gallery. It's a whole heartbeat." That was the closest thing to "I'm proud of you" I'd ever heard from her. And it was enough. Meanwhile, Jillian, my assistant, was blossoming too. She came to me one afternoon holding a portfolio. "I think I'm ready," she said nervously, "to show." We opened her first solo exhibit 3 weeks after the fall event. Her work, chaotic, colorful, unapologetic, drew over 200 people on opening night. She cried in the back hallway, then hugged me so hard my ribs popped. "Thank you for giving me room," she whispered. "You didn't just give me a job. You gave me belief." I realized then, revenge hadn't healed me. Love had. Firm love. Brave love. Self-earned love. As winter rolled in, the gallery felt more alive than ever. People brought in soup, stories, shared grief, and shared joy. We held space for each other, in paint, in words, in silence. One night, Mom stayed after a session to help clean. We stood side by side, wiping tables, folding chairs. She paused, looked at me, and said, I never imagined I'd be working in my daughter's business one day. I smiled.
Funny.
I always imagined I'd own one, just didn't know it would be this. 6 months later, the front windows of the gallery glowed warm gold under the morning sun. I stood outside, coffee in hand, staring up at the newly painted sign that now read, "The Woven House, Gallery and Community Studio. Founded by Emily Carter. Built by many hands." The name change wasn't just cosmetic. It was a reflection of everything that had transformed inside and within me. The gallery, once a quiet place of retreat, now pulsed with life. Children's laughter spilled out on Saturday mornings during art camp. Elderly couples wandered in after brunch to browse new pieces. Teenagers hung up their jackets, rolled up sleeves, and sculpted clay with focus and fury. We had become a mosaic, broken pieces coming together to make something whole. That morning, as I turned the key and opened the door, Lisa was already inside. She had started as one of our volunteers, helping me hang art for Jillian's solo show. Now, she was head of youth programs and had just been accepted into a master's program for art therapy. She hugged me tight. "Today's the day," she grinned. "You ready for this?" I nodded, breath catching in my throat. Today was special. We were hosting a multi-generational art festival, painting, quilting, even live storytelling circles. Families from all over the state had RSVP'd. A local news crew was coming. The mayor was rumored to stop by. But most importantly, today was the unveiling of a permanent installation, the Bridge Wall, a mural that told the story of healing across generations. From the top left, a girl painting in secret, to the bottom right, a gallery bursting with color and connection. At the center of the mural, painted faint but intentional, was a woman holding her daughter's hand. Their fingers intertwined like roots of a tree. My mother cried when she first saw it. That afternoon, I walked to the back of the gallery, where she was seated at her usual knitting table, now surrounded by 3 young girls learning how to thread a needle. She looked up, eyes soft. "Emily," she said, "you remember what Nana used to say?" I nodded. "Stitches hold more than fabric, they hold memory." She smiled. "And we've stitched up a lot, haven't we?" Outside, the ribbon-cutting ceremony was about to begin. Jillian stood by the entrance, holding a pair of comically oversized scissors. Her hair was dyed violet now, and she had recently sold her 3rd large-scale canvas to a corporate collection. I watched as she waved at Lisa, who was helping a 5-year-old tie a paint-stained apron. This wasn't just a business anymore. It was a beacon. As the festival began, I slipped inside for one last moment of quiet. The back room, once a storage closet, had been turned into a small library and reading nook. Books about artists, healing, feminism, craft. On the center table sat an old framed photograph of my grandmother. I whispered, "I kept going, Nana." And in my heart, I heard her say, "I knew you would, baby girl." Later that night, after the last cupcake was eaten and the last easel cleaned, I sat on the gallery bench once again. This time, not in sorrow, but in peace. The wind outside was cool. The walls around me buzzed with stories and art and memory. And I realized something simple, but profound. My greatest revenge hadn't been taking back power. It had been refusing to lose my heart in the process. I hadn't just made Mom pay rent. I made her a part of something real. I hadn't just silenced her doubt. I helped her find her voice, too. The final visitors that night were 2 young girls. One of them held a sketchbook. She looked up at me and asked, "Do you think I can be an artist too?" I knelt beside her and smiled. "Sweetheart, if you feel it here," I pointed to her chest, "then you already are." As I turned off the lights, I paused one last time in the center of the gallery. The room was quiet, still, strong, and in that stillness, I felt something wrap around me like a soft thread from the past, a whisper, a lesson, a promise. They told you it wouldn't sell. Now they stand in line to enter your world. You didn't just prove them wrong. You created something no one could take away.